Welcome back to the Indian Community Podcast. I'm your host Amit Gupta with my co-host Rahul Mehra. And today we're joined by Nikin Tharan. Nikin is an 𝐕1A Einstein Green Card recipient who's been making waves since his childhood. At the age of 9, Nikin was already innovating in a lab affiliated with India's Border Security Force, earning recognition from the President of India for his projects. After a full scholarship took him to Northeastern University at 16, Nikin helped commercialize groundbreaking radiation detectors and co-founded 𝐕𝐸𝐴, a startup focused on post-operative recovery. And now he's pioneering a VC-backed mental health startup and also helping others navigate the complex world of visa applications, drawing from his own experiences documented in the Amazon bestseller Unshackled. Join us as we delve into Nikin's inspiring journey and an essential discussion for students and recent graduates. We are exploring strategies to enhance employability for immigrant students in the USA. Essentially, how can students become opportunity or job magnets? Tune in as we uncover valuable insights and actionable tips on becoming more hireable in today's competitive job market. So, dear students and young graduates, don't miss this one. Welcome to the Indian Community Podcast, Nikin.
Thank you so much for having me, Amit and Rahul. So excited to join both of you here today and do this for the community.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Nikin, my first question is, I actually love the term Einstein Green Card, and I've heard it for the first time when I heard about you. So what does it exactly mean?
So that's a common misconception, as in you need to have a genius level IQ or be a Nobel Prize winner, an Olympic athlete winning an Academy Award, or have some other high distinction like that in order to get the green card. So it's the first category of green card. So it's the 𝐕1A green card. And if you have those qualifications, that's all you have to show is you kind of receive or won a lifetime award, right, in your field. However, if you don't, certainly in my case, I don't have that kind of accomplishment yet, but you're able to still make a case to the US government, to USCIS. And there are 8 criteria. They want you to show distinction across those 8 criteria, right? So they want you to have 5 or 6 criteria fulfilled. And it's qualitative as well as quantitative evidence. Some of the criteria are like, have you won, if not a significant award, have you won regionally or nationally recognized awards in your field, right? And have you gotten traction for your work? So if you're a researcher, it means do you have a higher than average citation for your publications? If you're an entrepreneur, it means have you commercialized some interesting invention? Has it been licensed and being used by the general public? And also, have you been a judge of the work of your peers in the field? Have you been a judge at hackathons or startup pitch competitions? And it really depends on what your field is. My experience is that of applying as an entrepreneur, as a startup founder, but someone who's a product manager, someone who's a software engineer, an architect, they would all have very different qualifications, or they would go about building evidence and the criteria in different ways. But I think to answer your question, it's very rigorous, the 𝐕1A. However, it has an approval rate of 75%, which means that if you have the profile for it, you qualify. Only a few hundred are awarded each year for individuals from any particular country, but a lot of the people who apply for receive it. So that's an important consideration. And I truly believe that anyone who puts their work into building their profile can get the 𝐕1A green card. So it's not, has a tall bar, pretty rigorous, but you don't need Einstein level IQ, not by a long shot.
That's just okay.
That is very humble of you, Nikin. I'm sure there's so much of achievements at the back which are also contributing to all of this. But having said that, we a lot of us live in that imposter syndrome, thinking that we don't have enough credentials or enough material to support that application. And I think people should follow you on LinkedIn and see all the posts that you share, because I think you make it really simple for people to understand all the things that they can talk about, all their achievements, and how they should present themselves so that their case is strong and they're able to actually communicate the value that they bring to the table, right? So that's the main thing. It's all about communication. And because everybody has achievements, if they've come up to this level, they've achieved so much already, but it's just that they feel that they don't have enough because of the term Einstein, because that kind of raises the bar.
Definitely. And I think it should be called what Soundarya in her book Unshackles, and whenever she speaks about calls it's a talent
Correct.
visa. And there are 3 talent visas. So you have the EB1A, you have the EB2 NIW. Both of them are green cards. And then you have a work visa, which is the O1A. And all 3, it's about storytelling. It's about identifying the impact of your work, kind of categorizing it, communicating that to USCIS, and also doing some extra bit of profile bit. It really differs what your background is, which industry you come in. But all 3 of these are talent visas. And really, anyone can build their case, right, to qualify for each of them.
Absolutely. Yes, Soundarya did mention that. We've had Soundarya on our show as well, and she shared some interesting insights into this process. So yeah, kudos to you and Soundarya both. Great. Nikin, coming to the topic of our podcast, right, which is focusing on students, and I'll tell you why we came up with this subject, right? And we spoke about this a little bit offline as well. Every other day, I see students reaching out, fresh graduates who've spent a lot of effort and money on acquiring these masters and bachelor certificates here in the universities in US, and they're reaching out and saying, I'm looking for a job, or I'm looking for an OPT, and I need to stop this clock, which is otherwise I'm going to have to go back home. And every time I look at them, I feel sorry, because this shouldn't be the case. They shouldn't be in this position. And you've been a student yourself. You've studied here in the US. What, according to you, are those unique challenges that these students are facing, especially when they're seeking employment? And how would you recommend that they start preparing to overcome these?
Yep. And so, yeah, great question, and something that I've thought about a lot, as in, how do you become a job magnet? How do you make your resume like scream, which is, hire me, I want to be an asset to your company? And this brings me back to my student days, right? And I was grateful to have a set of mentors at that time, and some of whom were recruiters. I mean, they did recruiting for a living, and they were able to share some insights with me. And the other part was also, I kind of came to the US for exposure. So I put myself out there and went out and pursued opportunities other than just classwork. Right? And something that's available to most students on campus is research opportunities. Right? So you can volunteer as a researcher in one of several labs on campus. But ideally, it's a paid opportunity. So you get to work as a research assistant, but volunteering is a way to get started. Right? And you shouldn't do research for research's sake. So what I would do is be very clear in communicating with the professor that you want to have an end goal. And an end goal for any researcher is to have their work published. And if not published, to be able to put together a conference presentation and speak at a conference. If not speaking at a conference, giving a talk at the university symposium or any event that the lab has. So essentially, you want to work towards a tangible end goal. And that end goal is something putting the effort in with an end goal in mind when it comes to research. So that's one way. Another way is by doing projects. And what do I mean by projects? So when I was at Northeastern, and I did my bachelor's there, but we had hackathon fever, and fever, most accurate term to describe it, because we had a bus and there were, I think, close to 10 of us. And every weekend during the semester, you'd go from one campus to another, competing in hackathons. And what is a hackathon? And hackathon is basically a 24 to 36 hour event. So it typically starts on Friday evening or Saturday morning, and you have a demo on Sunday afternoon. And one of the most common misconceptions is hackathons are tech events. That's actually not the case. I mean, many hackathons today are interdisciplinary. They could be from any field, and you'll have contributions to make. And in terms of the hackathon itself, the goal of it is to hack at something. And here, to hack at something means to come up with a solution to a problem. And the solution could be a piece of technology. So it could be a web app, a mobile app, a Chrome extension, a smartwatch app, or it could even be a policy recommendation. It could be like a data set that you've cleaned and put together. Right? It could be in healthcare, for example. Right? It could be some kind of insurance change, right? In terms of how PBMs and insurances. I'm just thinking out loud, giving a few different examples. Yeah. But it doesn't just have to be a tech product that you're building or the solution you're coming up with in those 36 hours. And the best part about a hackathon is you get to meet new people. So I never went in with a formed team. I always met people on the spot, formed a team, and developed a solution in those 36 hours. And the other is there are almost always companies there. So the companies may be sponsoring the event, and other times they're there to recruit. So they're there to find who is the brightest, the sharpest set of students, and they're there to shortcut the interview process, so to speak. And in our case, I think during my undergrad years, I did close to 30 hackathons, right? So this meant almost every weekend we're out at a different university, one of these competitions. And it was easy because we still had assignments to do, we still had homework to do, and all of that got pushed into the week, right? Because you're here Friday evening, all day Saturday evening. You didn't even sleep Friday night or Saturday night, right? I mean, you had sleeping bags. It used to be like a giant gymnasium or like some convention center where we were at, but it was a ton of fun. So you learn new things, you met new people, and you got yourself in front of companies. Right? And we did a whole range of projects. And now looking back, perhaps, I mean, to all the students listening to this, you don't have to go on, you don't need to be infected with hackathon fever and to do 30 hackathons. But in terms of the outcome, so what came out of it is we had tangible projects to share with potential employers, right? So employers could touch, feel, interact with what we have built. And more importantly, we had stories to share, right? So we could talk about how we came up with the problem, how we identified the problem, how we came up with the solution, what are the challenges we faced. And now it was out into the world. And out of those over 30 hackathons that I've done to date and over 20 that I did during that period, hard to remember an exact count. I did get a few very tangible, could call them internship opportunities, right? Or work opportunities. So most of them were just sleepless, sweaty nights and days spent away from the comfort of my dorm. But from one of them, I actually got an opportunity to do a project at Harvard Law School. So with Professor Lawrence Lessig, it's called the Academic Independence Project. I had no connection to law whatsoever, but it just came out of a hackathon. Then from another hackathon, we helped create a map of food deserts in Boston. So basically, there are locations, even within a city, which are like far away from like a grocery store or a convenience store, and they are known as food deserts. And we did this for a food bank. And this data was already there, but it needed to be cleaned out and put on a map. So very simple work. Again, it's not a product that we built, it was just a map that we created. But we won a prize that, and that had a real world impact. And most notably, a startup that I founded, a medical device startup. I founded Med6 that came out of a hackathon as well. I met my co-founder, who was a surgeon, at a hackathon at MIT. We ended up winning the first place prize. We also got a grant from MIT to continue our work. And that set things off in motion for us. So you never know what opportunities arise till you put yourself out there. And hackathons are a great way of putting yourself out there. Now, coming back to employability. So you go to hackathons or on your own initiative, you're putting together a set of projects. Now, what are the projects I'm talking about and how should they be? So first things first, let me share my screen and let me talk about where do we find these hackathons.
So while you're doing that, I do have a comment here, especially for students who go pub hopping on weekends. If you want to be hireable and you want to be a job magnet, also start consider hackathon hopping, what Nikin is suggesting over here. So pub hopping can be done later, but I think the need of the hour is hackathon hopping. And the one thing that I have seen about hackathons, and I want to mention over here, which initially I was also of the opinion that hackathons are just for techies. But as an experienced designer myself, when I attended a few, I soon realized that, hey, there's so much of input that I can give in as a designer, as a marketer, as a copywriter, as somebody who is completely thinking, differently is also essential and is as a critical input for every hackathon. So in fact, for every hackathon team, go look for that creative soul who has no technical knowledge, no coding exposure. Bring them also into your teams because they'll add that flavor of creativity, which is so much important.
Definitely. And in terms of the repository for hackathons, where you find them, I mean, devpost.com is a site to be. And so you can just search for hackathons and you'll come up with a giant list. And you can find ones which align with your schedule and sign up to participate. I personally prefer in-person events than online events because way more collaborative. No matter where you are, it could be in SF, in New England, in India, and you have hackathons. In Virginia, you have hackathons happening all over the place, right? And what you want to do is through attending these hackathons is you create a portfolio. There's a good friend of mine, Jake, we went to hackathons together. And this is what a sample portfolio looks like, right? In terms of, Jake works at Apple right now, right? And in terms of the projects that he built, these are great projects. One of it is piano lights. So basically, it's a hardware and software. And the hardware, so let's say you're a beginner and you want to learn to play the piano. It shows you, it lights up the keys. So it shows you how to play like a Beethoven symphony, or in my case, like Baba Black Sheep, or any other song for that matter, right? And another software-only project was Project Horus that he did, which is you can just upload an image and it shows you what that object is in different languages, right? So it uses APIs to do that. And this is in fall of 2015, where this was really cool. This is before Google Lens. And then another project was Pong. I could play a short video here, but to quickly show you what was built, it was basically using an Arduino, two Arduinos. They were just competing against each other to play Pong, right? So it was, again, a hardware software combination. And all of these are live projects, right? So you have videos next to it. So you have a description. So any employer can read about how you approached building the project, what the end result was. And this is true for all of the other projects that were built as well. And I'll stop sharing my screen.
This was really informative actually, This is something actionable for our viewers to work on later on when they see it. So, again, you have been, talking about things like, what talent you need, what are the extracurricular things you need to do to be employable. Now let's get to the core things like, when students are actually studying. So they are into skill development.
Mhm.
So what skills do you think, students need to develop to be competitive in today's job?
That's a very good question. So the industries that I operate in are healthcare and also applications of AI when it comes to real estate. And it's one of the startups that I'm advising, and also immigration technology, so to speak. In terms of the technologies that are useful today and broadly applicable, I guess my bias is, my feedback is more startup oriented, right? So if someone wants to work in a startup, these are the skills that they want to be having. Is problem solving skills, especially creative problem solving skills. Are you able to come up with solutions to problems on the fly, right? Are you quick thinking? And are you able to put on different hats? So multitask. And let's say you're a software developer, but there's a customer support ticket and that you have to take care of, right? At this point of time. So are you able to switch gears and go into the customer support without saying that, hey, that's not what I signed up for. That's not in my skill set. That's not what I'm studied to do or be. Things like that. And practically speaking, in terms of the skills, the world is moving towards AI. That's the next smartphone and internet revolution that's happening. And is the next big thing. Practically speaking, you want to have the skills to make that technology translatable to the masses. As in, how do you use AI to solve real world problems? So one way of doing that is through chatbots. So if you learn how to build chatbots, you become that connector. So you know how to make a large language model accessible to a large set of users. And the other is with training the models themselves. So now most of the models, you do have ones by big tech companies, which tend to be general, but there are more and more specialized models for music creation, for video creation, for healthcare, for law. So learning to train models, learning to develop models, that's a very valuable skill. Learning how they even work, right? So lots of open courseware available. So on YouTube, Udemy, MIT, Harvard, all of that educational content now is freely accessible. Right. So I would learn how to do that. But those are just a few suggestions, top of mind, that I have. Is you want to learn the fundamentals of how the new technologies are coming. And more importantly, in terms of skills, you want to make sure skills you have, they solve real world problems. So whether it's training the models, making them actionable to users, like connecting them with users, that's where personally focus.
So the core skill is problem solving.
Yes.
That's pretty interesting.
And summarize over here where there's an essence of volunteering, there's an essence of reaching out, being more proactive, in terms of research, making sure that you're opted in to contribute to research, and then you're also trying to speak up at these events or conferences. Then you spoke about how students should start looking at hackathons and start maybe considering hackathon hopping as a weekend activity where they can start solving these real world problems, creating these tangible products, and having stories to tell. Now, you do all of this, but you still have to build a brand and become that magnet, right? And in today's world, we all know, and we see that LinkedIn is that tool where we are all essentially trying to be that top voice in our respective categories, trying to be that brand in our respective categories. So, what are those strategies and tips that you would like to share of how somebody can use LinkedIn more effectively, especially young students?
That's a great question. So there are two parts to this. One is how do you build a brand around LinkedIn? And second is how do you use LinkedIn very effectively for
Correct.
networking, for outreach, for finding jobs, and even finding the right opportunity. So in terms of the first part, which is writing on LinkedIn, personally, what I had to learn to do is be consistent. So it doesn't matter what you write. So you just need to develop a habit of posting once a week, posting once every 3 days. Now I just post every day. And what do you write about is it's not so much sharing facts. It's about sharing your interpretation of events. If something inspired you, if something just ignited like your curiosity, or if you found a helpful resource, you thought of a helpful resource, you want to share that with the community, right? And with the world, so to speak, because there's a high chance that other people find it similar to you, find it useful, interesting, and curious as well. And what I also had to learn to do is not overanalyze and not aim for perfection. So your first few posts are just going to be crummy. There's no way around that. They're going to be like big blocks of text, and it's going to come out like an hard to read essay. And that's perfectly fine. As you get better over time, as you get better with it, then you improve how you write. You also improve what you write as well. And LinkedIn has a lot of reach. I mean, a post of mine, no likes, it still reaches 2,000 people. And that's powerful, right? 2,000 people are made aware of even who you are. The fact that you're present on the internet in this world, and especially when you're looking for opportunities and you're looking for jobs, that's a very
And you have an opinion.
And
you also have an opinion, right? It's not that, the brain is, the gray cells are not working, right? So they're actually working and you have an opinion and you're sharing that opinion. So it does a lot of different things, right? So it shows you have the confidence. It shows you have the power to think and express and communicate that.
Exactly. And one example of this is, let's say you graduated and you're on your OPT clock, right? So you have 90 days to find a job. And seniors, so campus resources, you figured out that on OPT, you can actually volunteer. And that helps you stop the clock and you secured a volunteering opportunity. And you might think that, oh, everyone, I mean, it took me time to learn about this, but people already know about this. Or it's probably not that important to share. And that's exactly what you share is, hey, here's the problem I faced. And this is like the research I did, or this is how I found out a solution. And this was my solution. And here are a few alternatives or set of solutions for you to consider. And that's just a very simple example of the problem that you're facing. And that could be turned around into very helpful content for the community. And this can be applicable not just as a recent graduate, but to the job search, to an internship search, to housing search, finding roommates, so on and so forth. Whatever challenges you're facing, whatever new skills you're learning, technologies you're learning, whatever inspires your curiosity and the solutions you're coming up to the problems that you're facing on a regular basis.
That is formative. I have another question, Nikin. How crucial are internships and, on the ground experiences important in securing full-time employment?
That's a very good question. I would say it's chicken and egg situation, and that hasn't changed for a long time, which is employers say they want freshers or fresh graduates. But then when you go for the interview, they're like, where is your experience? Right? So
Right.
you need experience to get experience. So that cycle always exists. But what I also wanted to share about is in terms of using LinkedIn for finding internships and jobs and how to do that effectively. So going back in time again, because of the number of hackathons I did, number of projects I had, I received inbound offers to interview at Google, at Snap, at Dropbox. I never even had to go and apply. So I was very fortunate that way. And my other friends in the hackathon circuits had similar experiences as well. I decided to go the startup route. They went the big tech route. The other aspect of it is when I was building my startup, I was building a medical device startup. I was 21. I had no connection to the healthcare industry, to the medical industry. So in terms of even forming a founding team, finding advisors, finding our first set of investors, I really had to lean in heavily on LinkedIn. Then I realized that what I've learned, it could be applicable for students as well, right? Especially for finding their dream job. So in terms of what that process involves, let me share my screen again.
Sure.
Can you see my screen, Amit?
It's coming up. Yes, we can.
Perfect. There are a few parts to this. So the first step of this is learning to use the LinkedIn search filters very effectively, right? The search filters actually accept Boolean. And what that means is you can really narrow down the people that you're searching. So let's say I'm looking for a software engineering. Let's just take that as an example. And the first thing is to know what you're searching for. So there are a few tags that people use when they are hiring. So you can do, we are hiring. That's a frequent tag that employers use. Then you go to people and you find a short list of people, all of whom have, we are hiring. So this
That's cool.
is one of the areas which is using the LinkedIn search filter effectively. The other is finding things in common with the people you're reaching out. So let me United States and let me add school and show results. So this narrows the search. Again, you can make this as broad or as narrow as you'd like. And here, Joseph
Right.
looks like he's hiring and he went to Northeastern as well. Looks like it's a car company. So I'll just check his profile. He's been building this for 7 years. It's pretty cool. Yeah. And there are two ways now to connect with Joseph. I would send a very nice connection request. I would add a note. I would personalize the note. Hey, Joseph, We attended you to. That's a very simple
Mhm.
connection request. Other way is to send a nicely crafted cold email. And for that, you can use this tool here known as 𝐂𝐤𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐭. So I open Joseph's profile and I open this tool and I get two of his emails. So I can copy these emails and then send a very well written cold email to Joseph. And the topic of the email can be different. So you can aim to reach out to him for just networking. Or if you're seriously in the job hunt, then you can draft the email accordingly in terms of an open position at the company and that you're uninterested in applying for that open position. So these are a few ways in which I would leverage LinkedIn. What are other ways in terms of finding common ground with people, right? So other ways are your location, which is where you're from. So let me remove we are hiring and let me say I'm from Bangalore and I want to connect with managers. So anyone who's also from Bangalore and who's a manager now shows up. And this is helpful for networking. And if they have an open position at their company, I can reach out to them directly or at least ask for a referral.
So now three levels of
Or
filter. So they're from Bangalore, they're currently a manager and have attended Northeastern University. They're currently present in the United. So I think what you're doing here is you're identifying those common factors or speaking points that you can connect to them about.
exactly. So you go from common ground to
Mhm.
higher ground. So you find things that you share and you use that to build trust, build rapport, and develop a relationship. So I could also use the language that I speak. So my mother tongue is Tamil. That's a great thing. So these are people I share a language with, and they are hiring managers.
That is
So I can stop sharing my screen. So these are tools, right? The important thing here is to have a strategy. So it's to apply these tools. And second, there's no taking away hard work. For me to find 6, 7 investors for my startup, I had to send 3,000 cold emails.
Ooh.
I don't know what that ratio is to get a job, but it's going to be a numbers game and you shouldn't shy away from the hard work that's required.
Consistency and grit. Nice.
Right.
That is so cool. And the one thing that I've also noticed is a lot of students get activated only in their final years or and when the meter is going to start running and they're going to graduate and now they need a job. Is that too late? Or is that something that they should be preparing from the first year, right? When should students actually be starting these kind of activities? When should they start networking?
That's a great question. I'd say in terms of doing research on campus as well as doing projects, hackathons, they can start from the first day they are on campus. And networking, I mean, happens. And what I mean by that is if you're out there building value, either to a research topic or through the projects that you're working on, you will meet people who who are willing to open doors for you, who are willing to give you a shot as an intern, as an employee at the company. Where I would use this more targeted approach that we just saw is when you're on the
Correct.
clock, right? So when, hey, it's January and you need a summer internship, or it's January, you're graduating May and you need a full-time job, then no holds barred, right? So you just want to put in, I mean, be very intentional with the effort you're putting in, and be intense as well, as in put in a lot of effort. So, and my thinking towards that is you just have to be lucky once. So with fundraising, you just need that one lead investor to believe in you. Same thing with the job search, right? Or if you're dating someone and you're looking to get married, right? So in all of these different areas.
That is so cool, Nikin. Thank you so much. In fact, recently we spoke to a guy called Rohan Pradyumna. So he's the founder of a startup called Travana. It's an AI-powered or enabled travel planning company, right? And he was at a university, I think University of Maryland. And right after that, he has gone and stepped into entrepreneurship, right? Instead of being a job seeker, he became a job creator. And I think when I look back at his story and I look at your story, I see that I see those common points where he was also very proactive and very active across the hackathon circuit, and was also trying to reach out and build something of his own, right? So there was always that quest to build something tangible. Now, there's also one misconception among students is that you cannot step into entrepreneurship right after university. So when they see people like you and Rohan, I think there's this opportunity for inspiration, and maybe as a parting, message. Do you want to talk a little bit about what are those opportunities for students to step into entrepreneurship? What is that right path? Because a lot of them think that they're not allowed to do it, or they don't know how to do it.
That's a great question. I would say there's a lot of activities you can do to validate
Mhm.
your idea before taking the leap of faith, right? Which is not even going full time into the venture, but even incorporating. So I would say even that is a leap of faith. And what do I mean by a lot of work that can be done? So you can build wireframes of your product. So you're not even talking about a working prototype. So you're talking about a
Right.
design, like wireframes. You can put together a presentation that clearly has like your value proposition. And the most important thing, you can get out of the building and go talk to customers. Right? So you can do, using the tools I just shared, can do a lot of cold outreach, speak to customers, and truly find out if you're solving a pain point. Right? And the way you know that is after you finish a presentation, the customers are literally going to be, here, take my money. Right? And the way they express that is different, but it's along the lines of, what stage of development
Correct.
are you in? Or would this be released? How can we help you in the work that you're doing? So you'll get very strong signal that you're building something that people want. And many times they'll also offer to co-develop it with you. Call me anytime. I mean, I'm here to help you out if you have any
Correct.
questions. And there's another set of responses, which is broadly can be categorized as meh. So, and that comes in various forms, right? Is, I don't think so. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. Maybe we don't need this. I really don't see the
Mhm.
application. Whatever, right? So if someone isn't, I mean, physically or either through Zoom, through their words, it would be different. Like literally giving you money to solve their problem, then you're not solving a pain point yet. So then there's more discovery iterations for you to do. And personally, my thinking over this has certainly changed. The side project, the project, it basically has to call you in to the business, right? So it has to suck up so much of your time. It has to be so much to do that you have no choice but to incorporate it and make it into your full-time. So personally, I wouldn't recommend anyone to quit their job and go in search of
Mhm.
an idea. It's keep hacking, keep iterating. And once you find something interesting, once you have that pain point
Right.
to solve, then you can keep growing it. And literally, it pulls you in. So the business should pull you in. And if you look at the founder of Asana, so Dustin forgetting his last name, Moskowitz. He was working at Facebook. He was one of the co-founders of Facebook, right? And Asana kind of
Correct.
pulled him in. Like, is it my project? And it started taking off. And he's, man, I just can't. I have to make this into a business. It just can't be a part-time project anymore. So that's the approach that I would take. And yeah, before incorporating, there's a lot of validation you can do. You can do that on a student visa. You don't have to even think about the
Right.
rules about that. And when you're incorporating, who I would reach out to are startup founders who have been through this journey before and immigration attorneys, right? So many of them do free webinars. Many of them offer free consultations. Speak to people who have a vested interest in making you
Correct.
succeed. And fortunately, I've just seen a lot of international offices, well-meaning international offices, scare students, right? And the reason being, the people who are sitting at the front desks are interns who are students themselves, and they just don't have a good grasp on the rules and the law. And the universities that have competent international offices, the Ivies, Stanford, MIT, Harvard, you see the output of
Correct.
startups
Correct.
from there, right? That's one of the reasons. The ecosystem, the offices, everyone's
Correct.
supporting the students. And unfortunately, a lot of universities still have work to do. They need to catch up to do that. But speak to people who have fruit on the tree. Speak to people who have walked your path before and have results to show for.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Nikin. I think we're at time. I know you have to go. This was a wonderful session. I learned so much about LinkedIn and the DevPost website and just the spirit of being out there, being proactive, looking at those common grounds and then moving to higher grounds. I loved everything that you have shared in this episode. And we would like to invite you again to talk about some of the other topics that you're very vocal on LinkedIn, especially on the EB1A, the route to EB1A, and that journey that you would recommend for a lot of folks. But again, I really want to thank you for all the time and the insights that you've shared on this episode. We truly appreciate this. Thank you.
Really appreciate you having me on.
Thank you. Thank you. Before we end, I want to say something. Nikin, whatever you have said, this actually today's topic was more focused towards students and employment. But I would say a lot of what you have said is, consumable by people who are our age also. A lot of us, so perhaps we can, I will stop here and I would say that perhaps, Amit, we can take up another episode where he, details things for people who are, a little more experienced in their careers.
Older students
How they
like you
can
and me.
use
Yeah.
the things. Older students. The hell when I match.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Nikin.